Hi, this is Brennan Davis from Bedrock Games and the Bedrock blog, and I'm here with Joel Clark and Adam Balderstone to talk about Strange Tales of Songling. This is our new RPG inspired by Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio by Pu Songling and by movies and books that are also inspired by it. If anybody's seen A Chinese Ghost Story or Painted Skin, those are films that are based on the same source material. So I should mention Adam is the editor, and Joel play tested a lot with us. I think I listed you as a play tester, correct, Joel? Did I?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you listed me and the other two playtesters that I was working with too.
Did
So,
you ran some games of it, right? Was that
oh yeah, ran
okay?
and prepped. It was super intuitive for the record and a lot of fun. Actually, I think the YouTube video of me doing that is still up. So, further viewing for everybody.
Oh, that's right. You know what? I could probably link it in the podcast below. You know.
That was back when we had Crystal's equipment. She has a way better mic
So
setup than I do. So, yeah, it was a really nice mic. So the sound quality is really good in that, unlike this version of my voice, which is terrible.
So, and before we go on, I want to just mention it is at Drive Through RPG right now as a PDF for $9.99, so people can go check it out. I'll link to it below the episode. It's going to be out in print probably in about a month. I'm just getting the cover file prepared basically. So once that's all set, it'll go to the printer, and if the proof's okay, it'll be out. But the PDF is available now, and it's only $10. Uh, so I don't know. What do you guys? How should we start this discussion? How do we? What are we going
We
to talk
could
about?
start at the beginning. I mean, obviously, we want to know what inspired you to make Strange Tales of Songling and what you wanted it to do.
So I think what originally started it was when I was working on Ogre Gate. I was using Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio a lot as a sort of adventure prompter. Like I would read one or two of the stories in there, and that would almost always give me an idea for an adventure. And then that just became its own thing where I just got really into Strange Tales, and I started doing this thing on the blog where I tried to game Strange Tales every day. So I did one story, I think it was 1 to 3 stories a day from the Penguin edition of the book, and I just basically tried to turn whatever was in those stories into a monster or an adventure. And so some of the entries were just like magic items. Some of the entries were monsters. Some of them were like actual full adventures. Like Saffron Creek was actually an adventure that was in that blog entry series originally. That's where that came from. That was one of the few that I was able to port into the actual Strange Tales book. And though I had to make a lot of adjustments, obviously, because it was done for Ogre Gate, it wasn't done for the new system. And then I started working on something called the Constables, which was it was gonna be sort of like a stab at this using Ogre Gate. I think I can't quite remember. I sent you guys the document, but I haven't looked at it in a long time. But that was, I think, when I really started to do it. And then, like, basically a week later, I think I just decided, because Adam, you had been running me through the Moldvay system. If I don't know if you remember,
Yes,
yeah.
correct.
So Adam was running
That's
Moldvay.
yeah, Dungeons and Dragons BX to give another name for it there
Yeah,
for people.
I always hear it called what Mold Bay Basic is what I usually hear it called.
Yeah, me too.
and and so anyways, I hadn't played BX in ages, and I had also been fielding a lot. Like Ogre Gate did a lot of things well, and it did a lot of things the way I wanted them to. But one of the difficulties I would sometimes hear about from people was how complicated it was, or how lengthy character creation was, how difficult it was to juggle all the different things. And I was thinking, well, if I'm going to do horror, I don't want people to have that same sense of complexity. So let me try to kind of like make a more Moldvay version of Ogre Gate.
Yeah,
And
there's nothing worse than a game where you die all the time, where making a character is a chore. That is like
yeah,
one of the worst game design combinations.
yeah. So the big changes were, the Ogre. I don't know off the top of my head how many pages the Ogre Gate system rules are, but the rules chapter is pretty lengthy, and the rules chapter in this is like what, 2 pages, I think, like maybe
Yeah,
1.5 pages, and character creation is basically 4 or 5 pages, and that's because we have 4 paths that are like character classes, and you know the bulk of the book is like monsters and stuff and adventures and things like that, and the GM section. So one of the first things that we did when we were working on it was, to the point that Adam made, was we timed character creation to make sure people were able to get back into the game in a certain period of time. We didn't want people like spending half a day making a character like you could
Yeah.
easily do with Ogre Gate if you wanted to. Do you know what I mean? You could.
Yeah, when I play tested, I specifically asked the players I was working with, how's the character generation? I was like, great, fine. So
I can't believe you timed it. That's so clever. I never thought of that.
That's actually I did that for this, and I did it for Righteous Blood, Ruthless Blades when we were working on that. Except for that one, I timed the combat, and so
Mhm.
I don't know. I mean, it might be worth it to go through and time everything, but I felt like the important thing in this game was number one, we knew how quick combat was in this game already just by playing it,
Mm.
but I really wanted to see how quickly people were making characters, and so I timed it every time I ran a playtest. And then when I did Righteous Blood, I did the same thing for combat because I wanted combat in that to be super fast, and so I wanted to know what
Yeah.
my
What was your
times were.
time?
Huh?
What was your normal time for character gen in this system? Out of curiosity.
I'm trying to. It's been a while since we did this, but it
I
was.
mean,
I think I was trying to keep it under 10 minutes, but I could be wrong. I think that was my goal.
that
Was
that
under 10.
sounds plausible to
Yeah,
me. Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
yeah, I think with a little experience, you can get way faster than that too. Because like from my experience, it really does guide you through very nicely, which a lot of systems don't do that. They make you leap around. But this one's very much like very linear, and that's something that's very nice in character
yeah,
gen.
yeah. The longest part is just allocating the skill points that they give you. Really, that I believe is the longest part, and coming up with any flavor details about the character that you need.
Yeah,
Um,
and even in the skill allocation, it's somewhat guided, a
yeah.
guided process. It's not just here's a huge pile of
It's a,
points, put them wherever. So
it,
it goes pretty quickly.
yeah, like Ogre Gate, that can take a long time because you got to get the skills, then you got to apply the system that we have in place for spending the points,
Primary,
and then
secondary.
yeah, and then you find but I wanted this technique, so I got to go back and do this, and so
Yes.
this
Yeah.
yeah, this gets around a lot of that. But again, this has a the feel of this is totally different. It's a lot lighter. It's really meant to focus more on rulings and story and what's going on in the table. Do you know what I mean? It's designed more for Monster of the Week type adventures rather than like that sandbox style that Ogre Gate was designed for. So it's just a totally different vibe in terms of running it. Um,
Yeah,
but
that the adventure design was an interesting departure, but I got to tell you, when I prepped for this, I prepped in a more minimalized, but a much similar way that I'd prep like a point crawl. And whenever we were doing the investigation, when I was playing with it, like playtesting it, it was similar. Like it felt open. It didn't feel like I was on like a roller coaster. It felt like I had choices to make, and those choices were significant.
oh, you mean like in the actual adventures themselves, like the
Yeah, and not only that, but like the way I prepped for the adventures, like they ran in a sandboxy way, and like rather they kind of
oh
kept the good parts of the sandbox without some of the because sometimes you can sort of over design a sandbox and you've got too much going on, it's too big and it takes too long to prep. This did a really good job of narrowing that down and providing like focus and direction.
yeah, it's like a
Yeah.
Like
I think I might even do I call it a mini sandbox at one point? Like I do mention that an adventure is kind of like a sandbox, I think.
I
But
know
like
I've called it that, so I
yeah.
don't know if I took that from the text or not. But
I don't
but yeah, there's you feel like you have moving pieces because I ran these adventures in the playtest and I felt like oh I can have this NPC doing this when the players dies or something. It's not like once again it's not a track. It's like well how am I going to react to what they're doing,
Yeah.
which is what I love to do when I'm a GM.
Yeah, and I do and a lot of the response we've gotten so far has been people really seem to like the adventures, so I feel comfortable sort of talking in a positive way about them because
Yeah, we
they've
do have people asking for more adventures for this
yeah.
game already. So
And so yeah, basically the idea is it's Monster of the Week, so I wanted to move away because I was doing really deep sandbox stuff all leading up to this, which I like. But when I do horror, I don't tend to run horror that way. And I wanted to just have a completely different experience of, I don't like when you're doing a full sandbox, it's like, I don't know what the players are going to do this session. I have no idea. So like you kind of scatter your prep over all of the various things that you think they could do. And that's wonderful, but I also for horror I kind of wanted to be able to say no, this adventure is going to be about Dracula. Do you know what I mean? Like this,
yeah,
and you won't encounter Dracula in this game, but I just mean like you have an idea in mind for what you want the players to deal with. but once they get there, they should be free to do whatever they want. Like, I don't particularly care if players solve the adventure or if they just, run around screaming for an hour and escape with, like, the remnants of the party. As long as they engage the adventure, that's all I care
Yeah,
about.
I like that term
Yeah.
used in the text of how it's like you just get X if you engage with the adventure, you get XP regardless of how things turned out. I liked that approach a lot.
Yeah, I thought that worked really well for me. It also meant going in, it could turn into this thing where they go through it and they beat the bad guy at the end. But it could also be more like a movie where they're just running for their lives and they're not necessarily even trying to defeat anything. They just want to escape. Do you know what I mean? It depends on
Yeah.
how badly beaten they get. So, like, when I first ran Heads of Waterfall Bay, that was a total party kill the first time I ran it. And and that's how I wanted. I was like, okay, that's good. It's fine. I want that. I didn't, so it's that kind of adventure. It's Monster of the Week, and it's got like I don't know what I would say, like not a story approach, but like a real sort of, this is the adventure. This is what we're here for, but you really don't know how it's going to unfold. And so that was the, so I
Well,
try.
it's anomaly investigations is I think the term used, and it is. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you're investigating this thing. You're not. You may fight the monster and defeat them, but it just you don't know what kind of thing you're going to do.
Yeah.
But
And the scope of the scope of the adventure could be a whole city. It could be like a manor. It could be,
mhm.
whatever it is. That's sort of, that's where you would have the sandbox structure. But it's only, it's sort of like if you play the game Resident Evil, the house is the sandbox, right? But you don't go wandering off beyond at least not in the first one. You don't go, wandering off beyond the parameters of the house. So, like, it's that same kind of structure. But within that, you have a lot of
Within
choice.
structure that you don't resent the boundaries of the structure, and that's
Yeah.
really important.
Yeah.
Like going back to
Yeah.
Resident Evil, like the second one's a good example too, where you're not even in a house anymore. You're kind of in a city,
Yeah.
but there are boundaries to that city. But because there's so much to do in Resident Evil 2, like you're like, okay, I'm fine with there being boundaries. I want to go and fight the giant alligator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And the other cool thing is these adventures are some of them are kind of linked too. Like they have there's certain threads that connect them, like
I love
characters or
that
whatever.
image you have in there too, with the threads that like you literally have like threads or something connecting the different images on the.
Oh,
on, like, the
that's how
screen.
that's how to conceptualize distance in sort of like the world of Songling is like this amorphous place. It's a uh,
I heard there was you were really debating, not debating, but you were really questioning with me. It's like, should we use this image? It's a great image, but I don't want to make people think this is literally what the world looks
Yeah.
like. And I'm like, no, use it,
Yeah.
use it. It's great.
No, it kind of speaks to you on a more surreal level, which I think kind of helps your imagination to engage with it and kind of the logic of it a little bit better.
yeah, because what it's saying is the stuff beyond those threads doesn't really matter for the purpose of what you're trying to figure out. You just know that there's the
Mhm.
7-day journey to where they're going to be going, and
Yes.
it's not important to map out all the stuff in between for the for a
Well,
monster of the week type adventure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
really love that. That actually guided my prep whenever I prepped for this because I literally had little circles and I wrote down what I wanted to happen in the circle,
Mhm.
and they were linked to areas, and then I just had lines between them with time signatures.
Hmm.
And what I found was it gave me a lot of the same kind of choices you would make like in a dungeon crawl, but it was like more open, like mentally the players engage with it like a living area, like a hex crawl. So I really got the best of both worlds there, and a lot of that was informed by that image.
Okay.
So like it's interesting you used because your text describes that, but also seeing that image like really kind of helps it like click. I
Yeah.
think.
I know, and that
So
image was done by Francesca Burrell too, who did all the maps in the book. So that was, it was in other hands, it might have been a total chaotic mess, but she managed to convey it really well. Um, so yeah, so yeah, I don't know. Also, we play tested these adventures a lot. Like I think that's something that um, you know, like Adam, like how if I feel like there was a point where it was just we were constantly playtesting and revising and like just a
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah, this was a challenge just because we did so much revision. It was like, as an editor, it's good to have like some distance on the text, and like by the end, it was becoming difficult because I'm like, oh, I'm so familiar with the
Yeah,
text now. It's actually getting a little harder to be objective.
yeah,
But,
yeah. By the end,
it was worth it. I'm really. 'Cause I'm just happier with this than anything I've worked on so far, as far as a complete project. So I'm very happy.
God, it's beautiful. Like, it really is a beautiful text. I cannot wait for this to be a paperback now. Like, maybe that's a little bit gushy, but holy hell, it's just a beautiful thing.
yeah,
Hmm.
no, this is the close. Like, this is whenever you make a game, like you imagine what it's going to look like, and this is the one that's the closest to what I was imagining in my mind. So like, normally there's a little bit of a distance between, what because you're giving people directions. Do you know what I mean? And it's going to be different. But this one, I think,
Even the
everything just
margin
came
art,
together. And what was that?
even the margin art is gorgeous. I've got a copy of it open while we're talking, and like, I just got to the choose your path section where it's got the four heroes, and then immediately it goes into like how to make them, and like the margin art caught my eye. And even that is fucking gorgeous. I
Yeah, and
just
I mean, after 2 years of working with that Word file too, the first time you sent me the laid out one, I was like, oh my God, it's actually a book.
Yeah,
It
yeah. It's
was
strange,
worth
isn't
it.
it? That
It
that
was
that is.
worth it. Oh man.
Okay, so I have another question concerning the classes. I see there's four classes, and like everyone that I've showed this game to loves the choices. What led to these four particular choices? Like, did you have a bigger list you narrowed down? Did it take a
Um,
while to carve these out of stone? Like,
I
how did this
think
go about?
I think we always had four. There might have been at one point where we were toying with a fifth, but I can't remember. I know there were also points when it was being debated whether the Demon Hunter and the Ritual Master should be unified into one thing. Um,
Hmm.
but I mean, it really just came out of the sorts of things you expect from movies inspired uh, by Poo Songling, and also what's gameable. I think you have to have both. You have to have the gameable, and you have to have the source material there. And if you don't have gameable stuff, then it can be really difficult. So like the crucial one was getting the scholar right, and that was the one that got the most change over the course of development, because when we started it was way underpowered. It didn't and it was really hard to power up because none of his stuff is combat, so it was like this really slow process of what can we add here or there, what can we tweak that'll make him actually fun and engaging, even though he's not really meant to hack monsters to death or anything. So uh,
So what was the original draft of him versus what he does now? Like, tell me about
I,
that process of evolving him.
I don't remember exactly, because I mean, I don't even know if I have copies of the original draft of him.
I've been
Um,
working on this over a couple of years, so it's like some of the stuff is
Well, it
yeah,
doesn't,
it's
probably not
lost
but
in
just for
time.
specific
but
detail, but I mean, like, just give me some general idea.
so I'm pretty sure like frantic research was something that came up as a result of people being like, I don't have
That was a
enough.
later edition,
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that was one of the things.
Oh man, that's a good one too.
Yeah,
It basically kind of gives you insight into the monster because you're like tearing through your text right there while it's barreling down on you and your warrior friend's defending it.
yeah,
Oh man,
yeah.
that's
That
great.
yeah
And
that that
it's very
It's something
genre
very
genre
cinematic.
accurate too. Yeah, exactly. It's literally something you'll see in movies, so it works.
and I think acute observation and character observation were also additions, and stuff like what is it, the ability to flee. I think we tweaked how that worked a lot, and I think the same thing even with frantic research when that was first introduced. I think it operated a lot differently, and then we refined it. So a lot of it was just about giving the scholar the right abilities and then refining those abilities as time went on.
Yeah, I
Um,
think the first time I ran it, it was the scholar. Acute observation was there by then. It was just acute observation and having a big chunk of money were all the scholar had for them, which wasn't bad, but it
It's not
just
terrible, but this like, not only here's the thing I love about the scholar. There's three things that strike me about it immediately. First of all, there's a lot here. and it's all on one page. Super concise. I love that. Just from a layout perspective, that's gorgeous. The second thing is the wealth of different abilities give him a lot of character and options in combat. So you're not just sitting there getting your ass kicked. But the most important thing in my estimation is the word choice. Like, listen to Flea. Scholars are particularly adept at realizing they are in danger and saving their own hide. I love it. How characterful, you know? You immediately get a sense of the kind of character you're going to play with your scholar with wording like that. Yeah,
that was one of my favorite abilities, because I could instantly picture, like in the movies and stuff, these scholars kind of like I'm pretty sure there's a scene in Chinese Ghost Story where something like this happens, where the scholars slinking away from the danger rather than confronting it, you know, and I like the idea of the scholar being the one who's sort of aware of the danger before anybody else is, so that they're able.
Point. Yeah. You can have the monster show up when they're on their own and have him still get away.
Yeah, and it's also kind of got like a bit of a Doctor Who-ish quality to it, where it's like I don't know, the non-combat guy has these abilities that actually have an effect. Do you know what I mean? That are that'll make the character survivable. So that was one. I think the other one that got here's another one that got big change. Ritual Master got a lot of changes. The wound decrease was originally set much lower. It was originally set at like 5th level or something, and too many people thought that was far too punitive. So I over time I reluctantly advanced it up, so it was higher. Yeah, I still kind of think it should be at 5, but I got such a reaction to that I, sometimes there are things where you're like, okay, I don't agree with everybody, but I recognize that I'm getting this volume of a reaction, so I'm going to make the adjustment.
I changed rules in Tianshang for the same reason. Yeah. Like, I changed initiative, I think, pretty significantly, and I'm going to be changing wounds, too, just because the feedback is like, okay, I misfired there. They're not all singing.
Well, here's what I'll say.
If people are going to house rule it, you might as well make it the main.
It's not a misfire, it's just that your preferences are probably set slightly differently than a lot of, you know what I mean? Like, like if I were to run this the way I want to run it, I might actually slide that up to 5. Do you know what I mean? Like,
and you can still do that. You're allowed to house rule your own game.
Yeah.
So there you go.
Yeah. The same thing.
Watching, the proper way is at 5. Real men do it that way.
Well, it's you know what it was. The reasoning was the scholar. The Wandering Sword, I think, gets the max wound increase at 6, and I wanted the scholar to mirror that and get the decrease at 6. That was how it was originally set. And I like the idea of the scholar being physically affected by the magic that they're using. Do you know what I mean?
Oh, the Ritual Master.
I mean, not the I'm sorry, the Ritual Master. The Ritual Master. I like the idea of them being affected by the magic that they're using. Putting it up at 9th level, it's like you just briefly get to experience that. You don't get the full effect of it. So that was sort of that's why I liked it being lower. But I think enough people that played the Ritual Master were sick of dying with just one wound that, it's like, okay, this isn't having the flavor effect that I want it to have on them. So
maybe decrease it from 3 to 2 instead of 2 to 1 or something like that. I think that there's something to be said for the margins of errors that you are allowed as a character, because like you can go very glass cannon with it.
Well, that's the thing. The baseline in this game is 2, which is important. It needs to be 2. That's definitely like the correct number. But that only gives you 1 increment to go down. So without killing the character,
much play there.
Yeah.
If the correct number had turned out to be 3, and it's so weird, but I know what you're saying there, because sometimes the correct number emerges as you play, and you're like, oh, okay, that's what it is. You have to design that. Yeah. Thanks.
And it doesn't look neat. It's not like, it doesn't feel like it has as much of a nice bow around it as if it was where you put it, where it's 6 and 6 and they match. Do you know what I mean? But you can't always get it that way. So, but definitely, I think the thing is, like, this was definitely like partly because it was a simple game, and it has only the 4 paths. It's got like a page and a half to 2 pages of rules. It was really easy to play test everything thoroughly. Granted, there are pages on powers and stuff too, so there were those to play test. But it wasn't like the level with Ogre Gate where it's like, You play test it for 6 months, and you're just getting like slivers of the game here and there each time. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
uh,
I'm running into that with Lone Wolf Fisk because of the amount of powers that are in it. But like everything in this has so much polish. It's
yeah,
just beautiful.
yeah.
Oh,
I feel like we
was right
filed
there.
off a lot of the rough edges on this one for sure. Um, and
Sorry, we got to page 9 where it's got the drawing of the hand rolling dice. It's a skeletal monster hand.
you know what's funny? That one, I actually added that in because I was originally just going to reuse the one from Ogregate and pay Jackie like I would pay her a set rate to reuse images,
Well,
say.
right.
But I was like, well, I don't know. That one looks like Ogre. The more I looked at it, I was like, that just is too Ogregate. Like, I need a new one, and I need one that's got like a darker feel. I want the dice to even be darker and stuff. And so she did. She made everything like just darker and more menacing, and it looks. I think it looks good. It looks, really kind of it's a minor thing, but like one of the things I hear a lot is people will do reviews and they'll get the way dice work in the game completely wrong. And so I want to make absolutely clear how the dice work in this game visually. So uh,
That's
I think yeah, the once I started doing that, I think I started doing it with I think it was Ogregate. I might have started doing it with Sartorius. People really got the dice rolling way better once we added in that visual image.
Yeah,
Um,
well, I like. I mean, I know the dice mechanic isn't new to this game. It is kind of the network system, but I really like the network system because it's so simple, but at the same time, the probability rates on it work out so well. It's
yeah.
just you wouldn't think unless you've actually done the math. You're like, okay, well, this is easy, but you look at the math too, and it just works on both counts.
Yeah, it does. And actually, when we first did it, we had Dan crunch all the numbers and put them
That's
in the
why I
back of the
know. I've
book.
seen his
Yeah,
chart.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
yeah. Oh, God, I'm having to do something similar with my games too. And like, well, it's a dice matching system, so the math is insane. Like, actually, one of the things I liked about your game is that it has a ton in common with my favorite version of the World of Darkness, which was the Blue Book or New World of Darkness. Like the dice are very similar. You use the same kind of dice. You still use pools, but like I think I like yours more just because there's less to worry about. Like it kind of gives you whole packages, whereas in WAD you would have to kind of build up your die pool. There's a lot of weird corner cases in WAD too. It doesn't
yeah.
have a lot of that. It's
Well,
all very concise and polished.
the
Very
the the dice system is largely Bill's doing. Bill was the one who really made the dice system. I had input, but like I was allowed complete freedom when it came to flavor. But Bill was really the mechanic guy, and Bill, at least when we first started, and Bill said I said I wanted to do D10 dice pools, and he said he would do it if we could do like sleek D10 dice pools. So the idea was a sleek D10 dice pool that doesn't
Mhm.
have a lot of the problems that you were talking about there. And so I feel like it works. Not a lot of people know about it, which is the problem. And a lot of people will see the dice pool and they'll assume things because it's a
Yeah.
D10 dice pool. But it really is like a fast, especially if you play it in a version like this, or if you play it in the early network games. Less so in Sartorius and Ogre because those games have so much added weight. You don't necessarily get that same. You don't see that right away because there's so much else to juggle. But if you play like Terra Network or you play this, you see how quickly the game runs with the
oh
dice
yeah.
system.
I mean that's one thing I like though. It's like it can work for a gritty, realistic system like Terror Network.
Yeah.
It works for Wandering Heroes, which is a high powered game, and it works for this game. And it's a very flexible system, being able to handle all those different games.
And you
Yeah,
get your results so immediately. It's very similar just to like rolling an attack throw in D&D, and that like you just kind of roll and you just get the result really quickly. There's not a
Hmm.
lot of filtering. Like White Wolf has a bad habit of filtering rolls through rolls. This doesn't do that. It's like,
yeah.
no,
It's
here
not
you
a.
go.
There's no mini game with the rolls. There's no addition. You're never doing anything like playing poker with the dice rolls or anything. But
Yeah.
again, the downside is people see dice pool and they assume that. And one of the things I haven't done a good job of is explaining the how the dice system works to people at the front end of a lot of these conversations and stuff, so that people know it's not, the dice, it really is a very sleek D10 system,
Yeah,
if you
and
give it a
no mini
chance.
game thing too. It's like something I've come to realize as a GM is I don't like mini games because mini games are a game you play over and over and over again. And
Yeah.
if you get sick of that mini game, you're sick of the game. It's like
Yeah.
it's just a danger you can have in your system sometimes where you create this thing that's going to become tiresome over time. It's like
Yeah.
I want resolution
Yeah.
systems is kind of what I want. Let's resolve this and let's get
I think
on with the game.
I think if you're gonna have mini games, the best place to have them is like in corners of the game where they won't come up that much,
Yes.
like the Taroka deck
Yes.
in Ravenloft. There's a bit of a mini game aspect to it, but it's special when it arises, so it's okay. Um,
Yeah, like if you've got a mass battle mini game, that's cool because not every fight's going to be a mass battle, so it
yeah,
makes mass battles feel special. But yeah,
Yeah.
that's a good point.
but like the everyday rolling that you do, you don't. I don't want to have that be a mini game. I know some people do like
No,
that, but
I'm,
uh,
I'm not gonna name this, but there's a current system right now where it's like every roll is this process, and it's like I just want to do this one thing. I'm just and it's like it feels like the mechanical weight of each resolution is heavier than each action is actually going to be. So
The game's gonna be
that's
just
a big thing.
Mario. You gotta play a game of Tetris. Yeah.
That's
yeah,
sort of that's one of the reasons why when like you remember when the transition to 3E happened and there was a lot more of a shift to the grid and you kind of got it in 4E too. But
yeah,
one of the issues that I had with that was you suddenly slowed down everything slowed down when combat happened, and it was sort of like, wait a second, like this is only supposed to be taking 10 seconds in the game world, but like we're devoting all this time to
Yeah, it would
you know
take hours
yeah
sometimes for very
well,
simple conflicts like
yeah,
that. It's not
yeah.
fun.
No, I know. Like, yeah, with Mold Bay, I went back and played Mold Bay after playing third edition, and I remember during third edition, as the game line went on with third edition, Dragon Magazine started putting out these articles talking about the 3-room dungeon, like the
yeah
ideal dungeon was only 3 rooms,
yeah
because that was really all the time you had in a night. Like,
yeah
oh, 3 fights, that's
It
that's
was three
that's a
hours
whole session.
gaming right there. You go into a room, there's
Exactly.
5 goblins. We'll be here for an hour.
Yeah, and then basically, I broke out Mold Bay on a whim. It's like I got a box of stuff my parents sent me from, they didn't want around the house anymore. I'm like, hey, it's my old Mold Bay set. Let's play this. And we did an entire, like 30-room dungeon in one night. And I was like, wow, this is what D&D is
yeah
supposed to be. You actually have time to explore. The focus is on the process of moving around the dungeon because the fights just happen. You
Well,
just
the
do
fight
them and you
in
keep going.
ice deck, they're really quick and brutal.
Yeah.
It's ideal. And actually, that's sort of how it works in this system too. Like
Hmm.
we actually in the playtest that you and I did, Brendan, and I were you in that one too, Adam? I feel like you were. I feel like it was you, it was me, someone else as the good guys, and then we had someone playing as the bad guy
Wait, the playtest for what?
for this game. I playtested this with Brendan at one point. I thought
oh
it
is
was
that
one
when
of
we
the
were playtesting the monster versus the monster
yeah, yeah.
one?
Oh yes, yes,
Yes,
I
that
do
was you.
remember
Big Bad
that
Eater,
now.
remember?
Yes.
Yeah, so just some backstory. We
But
the playtest for this went on so long that I started getting bored with just running regular adventures, and I started because I wanted to really playtest the monster section thoroughly, and I realized I'm only getting like a quarter of what I could get if I just had everybody play monsters and stuff. So I started having players do monster versus monster, just so I could check all the entries in terms of people using all of the monster abilities and seeing how they all work and if there's any wording that's wrong and all that stuff. And it turned out to be kind of fun. So we did a bunch of
Yeah.
them. And
super fun.
yeah.
And that combat went on for a while, but every single roll in that combat felt like a life or death situation, and I used real ingenuity and creativity with each and every action I took. And it was super satisfying to play out, even though no individual roll was more complex than just rolling a d20. It was fantastic, man. Speaking
Yeah.
of which, one of the reasons of that, and I just got to the power section as I was flipping through, is that each and every one of these powers is no more than a paragraph long. They're so concise.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I learned my lesson from Ogre Gate. I learned to like really pare down, because one thing I noticed with Ogre Gate is the powers that had the shortest entries were almost invariably the best in terms of connecting the flavor to the mechanic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
The
you do a
longer the
really
description went on, the more there seemed to be deviation, except in a few key cases where there was maybe a complex concept in there that you had to describe in a long, but the powers that were allowed to just kind of bloviate for a long time tended to have the just less connective tissue between flavor and mechanics, and so
they did.
um,
And you also do something super clever here, which is you link the name. You have very evocative names and directly link them to the function of the power so that you can tell at a glance, do I want this as a character?
mm.
Also, there's this really cool picture for exploding talisman that I can't stress enough. It's just amazingly entertaining to look at.
Yeah, those a lot of the talisman stuff was I mean a lot of it came from different movies and different stories in Songling, but some of the big ones were like the uh what was it? There was a Encounters of a Spooky Kind, I think, was one of the big movies that had a large effect on, you know, some of the magic that's, involves talismans. There were a few other movies like that because I wanted to get like there are a lot of these movies that they have where they have like these spiritual battles between ritual masters or between, like Taoist priests, and I wanted to be able to do that in the game. I wanted to make sure that you could do that. Um, but yeah, no, there's a lot of different, so there's the powers in the game are the Wandering Sword has like kung fu essentially. The Ritual Master has these powerful rituals that are usually a little bit on the evil side, and the Demon Hunter has stuff that is more geared for fighting supernatural enemies and stuff. So, um,
Such good niches too. Because like each one of those things is fun to play. They'll have their own kind of particular flavor and appeal and function. That's really great that they're defined that nicely.
no, I thought it all worked really well. I mean, it came out in the playtesting, I think. I really wish I had charted how all this developed because I want to go back and see. I feel like there were, now that I'm thinking about it, I feel like there were more tweaks to the number of classes from when we started. I can't remember exactly how those changes went down, but you know what? Let me see. Maybe I can find an older version of an older document if I still have one in the in my Strange Tales folder. It's unlikely, but if I do, um,
But yeah, talking about the art while he looks that up. I mean, he was always sending me art that Jackie was doing throughout the process. But when I got the final layout, I saw just how much art there was that he'd never sent me. I'm like, whoa, this it was just exciting coming across like the exploding talisman one. I never saw that one until the
I want
layout version was in my hands.
like on the very next page, it's got the little blades, big fish thing.
That
Oh my
one I'd seen
God.
before.
I want to
Yeah,
put that on my wall, dude. That's gorgeous.
I know. Jackie's art's great.
no, Jackie
Yeah.
did a really good job, and like what she's also good to is I kind of told her like this is like I gave her a concept of how I wanted the book to feel compared to some of the other books, and she's really good at seeing that concept through all of the images, so everything feels kind of connected. Do you know what I mean? Um, so this one comes on the heels of House of Paper Shadows, and House of Paper Shadows was kind of like I don't know, sort of like body horror and like just sort of like the fragility of the human body was kind of like a theme in that book, and so this one is sort of like the decay. Do you know what I mean? Just like the decline, the deterioration of things, and so I thought she did a really good job with that. It just in terms, it's not even that important in terms of the content of the book. It just is like a great way to kind of get images to align with each other. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, there
Um,
is such a unity of like tone in the art in this book. It's a beautiful read, man. And considering the variety of like monsters and the different kind of subjects and little action scenes and vignettes, having that kind of visual unity it's a masterpiece. It's really gorgeous.
yeah, she did a wonderful job. Her and Francesca both did really tremendous jobs. Also, I got a lot like when you go to those maps. Like I'm looking at the Songbird Vila map. I got a lot of help from Professor Juman, who wrote Crossing the Gate. It's a book about women in Song Dynasty China, and it really uses like architecture as like a way of understanding the history. It's a very interesting book, and I encourage people to read it. But she was really like open to, like me asking her questions and stuff like this. And so when I was working on that map, I would send it to her and I'd be like, does this look right? And she'd be like, no, like you have to have a shadow wall here and you have to have she would like tell me all the stuff that the map would need. And it's still not 100% perfect because like I'm still doing like the work, but like I got so much feedback from her that it really corrected a lot of the stuff that wasn't accurate or wasn't and again, this is, I don't want to give the wrong impression, this game is not like a historically realistic game, but I wanted a lot of the architecture stuff to be as plausible as it could be.
Yeah, and not only plausible, but again, eminently gameable. Because, like you mentioned, House of Paper Shadows, you could compare the usability of that map, which was
Yeah.
a gem of maps, to the usability of these too. Because I remember, like, whenever you were running, you gave us that nice map to check out, and we were very easily able just to kind of sight navigate it, not even looking at the key, but just looking at the actual art that was in front of us, and just we could easily link like a neighborhood or a structure to its function very cleanly. It was incredibly easy to use. And I get it, it really enhanced the game. It felt a lot more like an investigation because we had something to kind of like a sort of way to make it into a terrain for us.
Yeah, I think the maps do a really great job of making like the adventures really work because of the maps. Do you know what I mean? Like those maps, like Saffron Creek, like that map really kind of it just gives you a sense of the location. And before I had that, I had a handwritten version of the map that I did, which just didn't, it's same information, but it just didn't convey it in the same way. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, that conveyance is tough.
Yeah,
But these are almost like levels in a video game. Like they almost have like that level of usability and polish. Really gorgeous things.
yeah.
I wish I could do more than just tell people about it because, like, man, they've got to see these maps. It's
I
amazing.
know. I felt the same way running it. That's the only. It's not even really a downside. You're like, I want to show you the map, but there's a big, huge secret here on the map I can't show you. So never mind.
Yeah, what I would do is I would like clip out sections of the map and show them to people. Do you know what I mean? Like
Uh-huh.
I would cut and paste different sections that maybe only had the numbers but not the key or things like that. The numbers can also kind of be giveaway, but yeah, that was that's always the difficult. You can always do the thing where you make the player map and you make the GM map, which we did for House of Paper Shadows, but that's also like that's a lot more labor intensive for the
Yeah.
artist. So
Yeah.
and it takes that took a lot of planning. Like that seems like a minor thing, but when we did that for House of Paper Shadows, it took so much planning. I didn't want to do that again for the for another book, especially for 4 different maps. It seemed like that would be really
No, and
difficult.
ultimately, all that's important is the GM gets the
Mm.
space in their head so they can describe it to the players. So it's really all you need. You don't
Yeah,
need the player map.
yeah. So I don't know, but I know that I would it would be interesting to see how different people respond to the different adventures. I think my favorite adventures in the book right now are still the Judge from Hell and Heads of Waterfall Bay. I think those are my 2 favorite at the moment.
And that's one that we played was Heads of Waterfall Bay.
Yeah, I love Heads of Waterfall Bay. Number one, I love it because it's kind of like a vague reference to Danger Bay in some way, like that old show on the Disney Channel, like the title of the name of the place. Like it's not intentionally that way, but like it's sort of like it's like a misleading title because it sounds like it's like it gets your brain thinking one way and then it's a completely different thing. But
Yeah, there's
the,
a really fun NPC to run in that one too. And who I have a sense of the character from a movie too. But I really had fun with the
well,
NPC
that
too.
one is definitely inspired by Human Lanterns, which you
Yeah.
and I both reviewed. Joel, did you ever go over that one with me? Human Lanterns.
Oh, I did not. It sounds
We'll
amazing
have to do
though.
that one at one point. Human Lanterns is it's just
Yeah.
a masterpiece of like wuxia and horror blended together. It's a really great film, and it's got one of the best happy to be evil villains in
Exactly.
it's just and so
Essentially getting to play him in the Waterfall Bay
yeah,
adventure when I ran it, I was just like, oh, this guy's. I'm
yeah,
having fun messing with the
yeah.
players here.
It's one
You
and
know,
it's
that's
one of the
actually a
adventures
great
where
point
what
right
was that?
there is the fun of this game. There are so many little elements like that, so many little gems that it's just a delight. Like it's fun to do certain things. It's fun to play certain classes. The
Hmm.
fun of this
Hmm.
can't be understated. It really is fun.
Yeah, I thought that Heads of Waterfall Bay, like you said, like it's based on that. It obviously has other things in it, so it goes in a totally different direction. But like kernels, like that guy, are definite. Those are like things that are, you know, and that's why I tell people to watch the movie if they can before they run it, because I feel like that's the kind of adventure that would benefit a lot from what if you know that character, you'll have a very clear idea of how to run a person like that in a game like this. And then the Judge from Hell kind of takes some of its inspiration, not all of it by any stretch, but some of it from that movie Heaven and Hell that we also
Yeah.
did on the show.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, it would be helpful to watch Heaven and Hell too, but
Yeah,
for that one. But yeah, I mean that it's. I mean that's the thing. I mean there's a lot like there's a lot, but not too much going on at these adventures, so that the players do they have a lot of time exploring. You don't know exactly what they're gonna do, and I like that. When I run a game, I want to have the players have a little bit of an opportunity to go around in directions I don't expect and react to them. And I got that with these adventures.
yeah, and the adventures take what do they take up like so from
There-
page 78 to 149 is the adventures of the book. That's like the like
Hmm.
almost half of the book is adventure. Not well, my math's pretty bad, but you know, but a good chunk of the book is
it is a lot. But there's the
yeah,
thing, like, even if you don't use the adventures as written, like, there's so much there that it feels like it doesn't feel like redundant content. You know, a lot of
yeah,
times people do a really shoddy adventure in a book, and it feels like, oh, thank you, I hate it. Not
yeah,
these. Like, in addition to being amazing adventures, like each one of them, you have a reason to play it, and these are being different than all the other adventures. They have so much in them, in addition to that, that it's fantastic.
Yeah, well, I think because the core original horror investigation is Call of Cthulhu, which is famous for its adventures. It's like there's a high bar when you make a game like this. It's like you have to have good adventures, I think, for this overall genre of horror investigation.
yeah,
People
yeah.
just expect that.
No, and I think I mean again, I think the play testing really helped turn them into solid solid adventures. Also, the
Hmm.
fact that like we've you know I feel like I was able to take a lot of the lessons from other books and the process was just a little bit more streamlined by this point. By the time I got to doing these ones, um, so yeah, so we've been going on for like 50 minutes. So I think I'll end it here unless you guys want to add anything. Um, and just a reminder, it's available at drive through. Buy it, talk about it. If you like it, review it. Written reviews help a lot. The star reviews help too, but the big ones that really help get a book out there are the written reviews. Talking about it online on different platforms like forums and Twitter and all that is a huge boost. So, if you like the game and you want us to put more out, that's all going to ride on how well the game does. So,
It's
uh,
it's a beautiful game. Like it's well worth your 9.99.
yeah, yeah. And honestly, when I was putting it up, I realized I should be setting this at 12.99 if I was smart, because like, and again, just for people who don't know, the algorithm for the bestseller thing is based on the amount that a book makes. It's not based on the numbers that they sell. So, if you look at that bestseller list, the upper tier is taken up by books that are like over $15, I think. Yeah.
Yeah. And there are
So
some like Exalted Third Edition that are ridiculously expensive and don't give you anywhere near the quality of content this book has. But they were platinum because they were so expensive.
well, and the thing is when I was putting this up, I was like, I like part of me was like I should put this at 12.99 because that'll boost us up a little bit on the thing. But then I was like, all of our core books are 9.99. I want to keep it at 9.99. But the thing is, I did pay the price for that because, like as you saw, we got up to 12, and we probably would have gotten, based on the number of books we sold, I think we would have gotten into the top 10, just because we were only too shy, and that $2 would have made, actually, $3 would have made a big difference. So, and I don't think that those $3 would have deterred people from buying it either. That's the thing, because it's
This
not
thing was
like,
9.99. I
yeah.
would have picked it up. So
So, but I think it was still better to set it at 9.99. But the downside of that is we kind of have to ask people to spread the word a little more, and we can't rely on the top 10 list as much. So, so yeah. So again, check it out, and to all the people that have spoken well of it, thank you. And we'll be back on another time with updates on this line if it turns out to be something that we can put more resources into making material for. We have some ideas, but it's going to very much depend on how well it does.